Ah yes, your typical Porsche video on YouTube. Fantastic scenery, beautiful cars, and a feel-good story to tie it all together. Well, this is definitely not one of those videos. In fact, for the previous owner of this Porsche 911 Turbo, the past few years have been nothing short of a nightmare. As for the car, it truly is a gem. Speed yellow paint, carbon ceramic brakes, and of course a proper 6-speed manual transmission. But now, things get ugly. You see, the car, that's back here on the trailer, but the engine, that's in the bed of the truck, and spoiler alert, it's not in one piece. Now, I've just bought this car for $45,000, which is a fair price for a 911 Turbo in this condition. But as for the previous owner, he invested $150 grand in this car, and this disaster of a Porsche is what he got left with. The story behind this car is so wild that it's almost unbelievable. But now that we own it, I have no doubt. I have little doubt that we can restore it to its former glory. You guys know the drill by now. We have the car, we have the parts. It's time to get it back to the shop and get cracking. The only thing better than one broken 911 Turbo. Two, obviously.
I honestly don't know how I feel about this.
What's wrong?
Because we're supposed to get the other one done because everybody's waiting for it, and now we just get another project?
Well, this is a little different. It's all right, Fernando. The only problem we do have here is that this one is a better deal than mine. It's also much cleaner than mine, so that's kind of hurtful, but...
It actually looks way better than yours. In all ways possible. Do you see the interior? Wow. Just look at this.
It has the OEM carbon fiber wheel, the paint match center console, yellow seatbelts. It's just full of really expensive OEM options. I'm not personally the biggest yellow fan, but one that we're planning to fix and hopefully make a little money on. It's not a bad color. It definitely pulls more than black, silver, all those types. One other thing I'm not typically a huge fan of, but I think it looks awesome on this car, are color matched wheels. I've always liked these Tech Art wheels on the 911 Turbos. They look amazing. Guess how many miles are on this thing?
About 30,000.
76,000.
Wow. Wait, what?
Yeah, there's that. I didn't tell you guys about that.
This looks familiar. This is kind of what all the Porsches around this shop look like.
Stop it.
This is normal, right? I just absolutely love the fact that we just get these cartoon character, you know, Porsches in the shop. You got Barney on the lift over there. You got Big Bird now. You know, what's going to be next? Maybe, you know, what's the big red dog? Clifford? Get a Guards Red one?
If any of you guys have a Guards Red 911 Turbo, I would actually love to buy that, so put it in the comments. Now, these days, it just looks like a really clean, high-option, somewhat modified 911 Turbo. But believe it or not, just a few months ago, this car was making 1,000 horsepower. Problem is, it only made 1,000 horsepower for 300 miles. Now, trust me, guys, if you think the exterior and the interior are clean, wait until you see the underside. Not even a month before this car had its little mishap, the previous owner had the entire bottom of it cryoblasted.
For the mileage and this clean?
Unreal, wow. Right? Absolutely unreal.
It looks pretty much brand new. You guys know I'm going to take shots at Porsches whenever I can. There's literally not a negative thing that I can say about the underside of this car.
Not only is it amazingly clean, but I'm getting my first look at some of the mods the car has. Bilstein coilovers up there. He also replaced the axles with brand new OEM Porsche ones 300 miles ago. As you would expect of a car that previously made 1,000 horsepower, it has some big intercoolers on there as well. We have some type of aftermarket fuel system. It runs all the way up there to the tank. Apparently this thing got a pretty extravagant fuel system. Those guys there look pretty familiar. Numeric racing shifter cables. Apparently it does have the shifter as well, which I may have to steal for my car. We have ourselves some type of red sway bar there, presumably Eibach. Obviously, I didn't get the best look at the underside of this car when I was dragging it out of his driveway yesterday. I wanted to throw it on the lift first thing and make sure it checked out.
Completely checks out.
Now the car, it's amazing. It's everything I wanted and everything I expected. The parts, on the other hand, that's where things go downhill just a little bit. A lot of bit.
Whoa! I'm definitely not ready for that.
It's a lot. It is a lot. Frankly, it feels like Christmas in spring. The previous owner did say that he included absolutely everything that he got back from the shop. That's a very important distinction. He didn't say he included everything to get the car back together. The good news is we don't actually have to use all these parts. We're gonna pull it out, we're gonna assess what we have here, and then we're gonna decide what we're gonna reuse, and most importantly, what we're gonna sell to try to recoup some money. This 997 turbo build, it went off the rails just a little bit. This 911 turbo actually has to be financially viable. So the plan I'm going with for now is demodding the car to about 600 horsepower. I'm thinking that once we get rid of a lot of this stuff, it'll allow us to get the entry price of that car down to say $25,000-ish. That way, when we start dumping obscene amounts of money into the rebuild on this car, we have a little more breathing room. Off the bat, I can say with certainty, that awesome exhaust right there is going on the keeper pallet. One thing that we very obviously need to keep because it's a crucial part of the car, the manual transmission here, which, if I might add, does already have the GT2 slave. Heavier than I remember. Oh, yeah. In case any of you guys are unaware how much this transmission costs, $15,000 used. I did just get looking at this exhaust a little bit, and it looks really big to me. It looked a little off compared to the 3-inch titanium that I have on my 911 turbo. Come to find out, this is a massive 3.5-inch X-Pipe exhaust. Is that overkill for the power levels we're going to be running in this car? Absolutely. But I mean, we already have it on hand. It's beautiful, straight pipe with drone tubes. It has slash cut tips. I'm inclined just to use this because after all, even if it is overkill, you know it's gonna sound awesome. Fernando, you're up next. What are we taking?
It's a lot of parts, but we should start with the head.
I'm digging it. These actually happen to be one of the only parts on the engine that are actually good, so cylinder heads it is. Now, I am definitely counting on these bad boys to recoup us a good amount of money. When this build got done 300 miles ago, they completely refurbished the heads. Not only that, they got built sort of. Unlike the engine we did in my 911 turbo, these are stock cams, but the valve springs and the valves are both Ferrea. You guys are gonna understand exactly why once you see the rest of this engine, but when I heard what happened to it, I 100% assumed that the cylinder heads were gonna be trashed. In a trend that I strongly hope continues on this car, we got incredibly lucky. I know I haven't told you guys exactly what happened with this engine yet, but it chucked the rod. As some of you may be aware, when that happens, it's a virtual certainty that a piston's gonna come up and smack the valves. Somehow, some way, it didn't happen. There's not a single contact mark on any valve or the surface of the head. This next part may sound a little weird to some of you guys. We're not rebuilding this engine. If it doesn't make sense now, I promise it will later. But the good news is that means we get to sell these fresh cylinder heads. Obviously, because these were on an engine that had a catastrophic failure, they're gonna need to be gone through, at least cleaned. But the important part remains. All the castings, the hard parts, they're all in good shape. That's what's most important. We have plenty of aftermarket stuff in here as well. I don't know exactly what we're gonna get for these, but I know they're not cheap. As we head back to the old parts bin here, I suppose now will be the perfect time to tell you that I am going to keep you guys updated on the entire financial process of this build later in the video. How much we sell the parts for, how much we have invested in the car, everything. Why don't we go with turbos next? I gotta admit, guys, this is not a bad looking setup. But as nice as these look, things are a little weird with the whole turbo setup on this car. They're definitely aftermarket turbos, which of course they would need to be to make this power. But on one of the original invoices on this car, before the final invoice, this was billed as an $8,000 Zona rotor turbo setup. On the final version of the bill, as you can see there, this was just listed as a custom turbo kit by the shop. Now, because of what's on the current receipt and the fact that this is obviously not the Zona rotor turbo setup that was originally built, I don't know what turbos these are. We have ourselves a 58mm compressor wheel. We also have teal wastegate actuators on there, aftermarket headers, which are NHP exhaust. I'm unfamiliar with the brand. It is a nice setup. I just don't know what it is. One thing we definitely can ID here is this silicone inlet pipe. These are from our guys over in Sweden at Do 88. I have a bunch of this stuff on my car and I absolutely love it. Because of the fact that we're going back to stock turbos, we're also throwing a set of stock inlets on it, so just like the turbos, these are getting sold. Trust me, I know it's weird for me too. We're going the wrong way on this build. But I suppose if we think of this more like a restoration and not an off-the-rails build like my car, it starts to make more sense. Maybe. Next up on the list of good parts here, this $4,000 RPS billet clutch. I actually have used an RPS clutch before, not in a Porsche. It was in my ZR1. I loved it. These are top notch. And if you look at this thing, oh my God, it is brand new. This is an ultra complex, big power clutch. You definitely don't need something like this in a small power car, like the small power car behind me. So once again, this is getting sold. Used clutches are generally a tough market, but given that this one has absolutely no mileage on it, and it looks like this, I think we can still pull a good amount of money. Now, what's that saying in life? You can only avoid the bad so long, you gotta face it head on. That's what we're about to do. Though we might act like children once in a while, this is not a children's channel, but today we're gonna learn how to count. 1 rod, 2 rod, 3 rod, 4 rod, 5 rod. That's 5 total rods. There's 6 holes in this. I'm sure the best and brightest of you might have got it, but one rod disconnected itself. It also happened to take a piece of crankcase with it. That's right, absolute catastrophic failure on this thing. This brand new, nearly $7,000 GT3 crank, absolutely toast. I thought the failure in my 911 Turbo was bad. This is 10 times worse. This is an obscene amount of money that just vanished in the thin air. And yes, of course you can say that's the name of the game when building 1,000 horsepower cars. But the problem we have here, this build was supposed to be warranted. Now, I did agree, out of respect to the previous owner, and considering the fact that he has an ongoing legal situation with this whole ordeal going on, we can't reveal the name of the shop. Not only that, but of course, we only got one side of the story for this whole ordeal. I'm simply giving you guys the story that the previous owner gave to me, which he did back up with receipts and emails. Either way, it's an absolute shame that this happened. This was a super expensive failure. The crankcases from Porsche are obscenely expensive. The rods themselves, they're not cheap either. But you guys know me, I like to find the positive in everything. This is going to be the coolest piece of wall art I have ever had. On that note, I am taking suggestions in the comments section. What do I do with this? What do I make it into? You got to give me something cool and I will do it. Guys, before we get further into this mess of an engine, I need to let you in on something that's been in the works for quite some time. Our good friends at Avalon King Ceramic Coatings have sponsored this entire project. That's right, we're going to be announcing special sales and doing giveaways all series long. Fernando and I just finished coating my Corvette ZR1 with Avalon King Armor Shield 9, and even with 125,000 miles on it, it still looks flawless. Not only can you get your ride looking right and holding up to whatever nature can throw at it, but Avalon King is in the middle of one of their biggest sales of the year right now. All Memorial Day weekend, you can get 3 ceramic coating kits for only $99. Coat your entire garage full of cars. Coat your wife's car, your neighbor's car, I don't care. Come coat one of my cars. All I know is you're gonna do it for $99 instead of the usual $250. You can shop Avalon King's full Memorial Day sale at the link in the description. Even if you don't need ceramic coating kits, stop on over. Maybe you need some new microfibers or maintenance shampoo. Avalon King's gonna be having crazy sales all Memorial Day weekend long, but if you're late to the party, don't worry. Subscribe and stay tuned to see what we're working on with Avalon King for next episode. Of course, we have the other side of the crankcase here, which is not good at all, but it's not that bad. You could be forgiven for thinking this one actually looks normal if it didn't have pieces of bearing laying in it, all kinds of just junk. It's absolutely filthy. And yes, it could be clean, but correct me if I'm wrong, guys, you cannot combine separate case halves in these cars. If I'm wrong about that, definitely correct me in the comments, but for now, this is gonna join the other case half over here on the pending wall art palette. Got ourselves a valve cover there, which is in good shape, and whew, good shape these cylinders are not. It's pretty obvious here which cylinder had the catastrophic failure. This hole right here. That's the rod that went through it sideways. What I didn't expect is for it to come through the backside and hit the other set of cylinders. One other thing I definitely did not expect, especially on a build with only 300 miles, is that right there. That cylinder wall is 8 up. So this roughly goes like that. See, it's not that hard. They said these Mezgers were complicated. I did think we were going to have one set of cylinders to sell, but I guess, like the case halves, wall art. And if you thought we were close to done, you were wrong. There is so much stuff in here. A majority of it is engine parts, and a majority of it is getting sold.
Those are normally plastic ones, right?
Nailed it. They should have had you build this guy's car instead of sending it to this place. These bad boys right here, stainless steel replacements. They're about $1,000, if not close. Don't quote me on that. Very, very important. The plastic elbows back here break and then you're screwed. You have to drop the engine. Needless to say, regardless of the power level you're running, critical piece, definitely keeping these. Reliability mod numero dos, right here. You pin this camshaft. That sleeve right there will spin on the camshaft. It causes all sorts of issues. So you stick a pin right through there, problem solved. Just like those SharkWerks fittings, very important regardless of power level, so we will have to account for that in the future. Next up on the list of stuff that's gonna be absolute overkill for the type of car we're building, this fuel setup. Certified big boy power stuff. Injector Dynamics 1700s and Silly Rabbit Motorsports fuel rails. Not only that, but we have a really nice line set up here with an integrated E85 sensor. It's honestly an awesome setup. We're just not gonna need it. As advertised, ID 1700, these injectors are no joke, not to mention they're really expensive. Though we don't need these injectors ourselves, there is one thing we have to do to them before we can sell them, and that's send them out and have them cleaned. It's about $100 to have these things cleaned, but it's a worthy investment to make sure whoever actually buys these from us doesn't immediately grenade a motor and have it end up on a pallet like that. The intake manifolds, they're just stock, nothing real special, but they are worth a good bit of money, and my current plan for rebuilding this car means we don't need these. This next part, I'm gonna be a little sad to see go because it would look so good on the car. It's an absolutely gorgeous IPD Y-pipe paint matched speed yellow. And of course, what would a Y-pipe be without the matching plenum? Trust me guys, I am so tempted to leave this stuff on the car, but the fact remains that it has more value sold separately than it does sold with the car. This next part might be my eyes deceiving me, but I believe that this is a GT3 throttle body as well. 82 millimeters is what we're looking for. 83, I'm gonna call that a win. Yet another awesome piece that has a decent bit of value, and I'm sure you guys see where this is going. We don't need it for the build. All right, guys, we've been at this for a while now. We found some awesome stuff, but I'm thinking we need a new plan of attack. We still have bins upon bins of parts. There's all kinds of stock engine parts in there, not to mention the back seat. That is still full of parts as well as the door closes itself. If we keep going at this the way we have been, we're gonna be here all night. So I think it's time to just get all this stuff out of the truck, get it laid out, and see where we're at. Absolutely unreal, guys. If you've ever doubted exactly how complex these cars are, how much goes into getting one of those together, just check this out. A few parts I know we're gonna need to keep off the jump: rear bumper beam, every single one of those under trays, and that pretty red sway bar right there. Every single one of those parts is actively missing off the car. They're definitely not extra, and we definitely don't have replacements. That's a box of broken dreams right there. 5 pistons, also missing the one that was connected to that rod that exited the block. There is a good chance that these 5 pistons are good, but I'm not sure that anybody's gonna wanna use 5 odd pistons. Yes, you could order a replacement, but realistically, when anybody goes this far down the road of building a car that expensive, they're probably just gonna order new. Well, guys, you may notice that it's light out once again. Yes, we are on day 2 of this, but as we continue to dig through these parts, I have uncovered the third and final part of the reliability mod puzzle. Earlier, I showed you guys those stainless elbows that replaced the plastic one. This mod also has to do with the cooling system, but it's just a little bit different. These aluminum pipes are the factory pipes. You see that weld right there? That's aftermarket, however. From the factory, these are just glued in there. After time and so many heat cycles, they eventually separate and pop out. As you might imagine, that leads to a massive coolant leak, and like most things in this car, you need to remove the engine to fix it. Not to mention, if you don't catch it in time, you're gonna overheat and pop a motor. Then I'm gonna end up having to buy your car, and trust me, you don't want that. AC compressor spins freely, we don't need that. We definitely need this. That's the engine harness. Specifically, it's the engine harness out of this car, which of course has a manual transmission. Remember that manual transmission part, because that comes into play very shortly. What a shame. Yet another engine oil cooler here. This one also failed because before this whole build that failed 300 miles ago, the previous owner spun a bearing, so he was on his second failure. This guy here was in a box by itself. I presume this is the oil pump. And Fernando, do we want to take a guess if this...
What?
I was about to ask you if this was good. I'll just let them see for themselves. Oh! Well, after quite the surprise with the oil pump here, this is a box that the previous owner pulled out of his attic. This is not stuff that was with the car at the shop, so I'm kind of excited to see what we have in here. Fuel pump assembly, and this one is a big one. No, it's actually broken. That sucks. You see right there, the actual housing itself is broken, and that's not ideal. We definitely needed this. As of right now, I still have no idea what's going on in the fuel tank of this car. So we are in for a giant pain reverting this fuel system back to stock. There's aftermarket connectors, there's AN lines there. As nice as this setup is, some of the OEM to the aftermarket connections are just popping right off. That would concern me a little bit.
Nope. Is it getting through your eye?
No. Lightning fast reaction speed. I closed my eyes and it just splattered all over my face. This braided line right here runs all the way to the back of the car to that fuel pressure regulator. There's no stock lines to be found anywhere. Yes, that's a giant problem. I believe this guy here is the fuel filter. From the factory, it sits right about there. As you can see, it is no longer there. I have a sneaking suspicion that we're gonna need a lot of fuel parts to return this car to stock. This engine right here makes this entire project possible. For obvious reasons. When I got the call to potentially buy this blown up 911 turbo, I was super hyped on it because I knew all along that back at the shop, we had another engine from another 2007 911 turbo sitting here. The 911 turbo that gave us this engine has definitely seen the end of the road, but the engine, this only has 26,000 miles on it. There's so much more life left in this, and that's where it gets to live it. While this is technically the same engine, the car this came out of was a Tiptronic, which is a fancy word for automatic. Is that going to cause an issue? I don't know. I truly don't. But it's why I was so hyped to have this manual engine harness. If it causes an issue, chances are that it's going to be able to be resolved by putting this on it. Lucky for us, we do know all the right people, so we'll have the guys at AIM advise on that, as well as pinning the camshafts and see if there's anything else they recommend we do before we stick it in the car. The wing, not supposed to look like this. Turns out these hydraulics are shot. It's just leaking hydraulic fluid. These are known to fail. We've been very lucky in this shop. Every trunk that I've had come in has actually been okay, including the one on my car. We finally got bit by that hydraulic spoiler failure bug. So here's where we stand right now. I think we have ourselves a pretty solid plan. I'm gonna go hunt down and order a fix for the trunk. I'm also gonna take a look and see if I can find a fuel setup with lines for sale. As for Fernando, he's gonna take the other side of it. He's gonna go photograph all those parts we just pulled off the car. I'm gonna get them listed online, and we're gonna see just how much of that $45,000 we can get back. It's been a little bit.
Can we finally talk about this?
We can talk about it now.
Cool.
It's been a few days, things are moving, and they're moving fast. Fernando knocked out his part, got everything photoed, and then I got it listed. Of course, the only question left is where did it leave us financially on this heap of shit? No, this is a nice car. I'm not gonna call it that. At this point, I have everything except the fuel parts listed on eBay. That's probably gonna be about another $2 grand. But right now, we have just over $25,000 in parts. Keep in mind, the engine we took off the shelf for this car was listed at about $30. Just to keep it simple, we're gonna say that we paid for that engine with the parts that came from this car. So what might seem like a relatively complicated calculation is still pretty simple. At this very moment, we still have 45 grand into it. Except we did start spending some serious money on it. The very first part that came in for the car, these guys. This is a solid adjustable rod that's gonna replace that hydraulic ram there and fix us right up. Getting just a little more expensive here, you guys saw the shape of that fuel tank before. I said I was gonna try to find a complete stock sealed tank, and we did just that. It ran us 600 bucks, but it's gonna make the install 10 times easier. Now, Fernando, you ready to tell them about the real money?
Yes.
As for the engine here, still looks pretty much the same, but it is not. In fact, it's already went to our guys up at AIM Performance, got worked super quickly, and it's back. Unfortunately, most of the stuff they did you can't actually see, but they untimed the engine, pinned the cams. That's a big issue in these. We did already have those welded coolant lines, but being that they had to pull the entire thing apart, they suggested that they just weld their own, that way we know they're good. Those old ones, I had no idea the quality of the job that was done, so I figured why not be safe instead of sorry. A couple other things, they did manual convert this engine. Almost. One thing they couldn't do is install this manual crank sensor. It's an easy install, it bolts right there. The problem is this line on the manual cars, it kind of swoops out. We don't have that. We might have that. Let me rephrase. We might have that somewhere up there in that parts bin. I have to check, but we didn't send it to Ames, so we need to replace that. And if we don't have one, we're gonna have to order it up. All this work did run us about $5,700. It sounds like a lot of money, but this is must-do kind of stuff, and it's gonna pay dividends on the back end. Not only for the next owner, but when we go to sell it, we're going to be able to command a good bit more money. Even though it cost us a little bit, this engine is good to go. They fully tested it, boost leak, everything. It's solid. Well, except one part. They did find that this passenger diverter valve, which is aftermarket, is leaking. So we had to order a replacement set of those. That ran us another 200 bucks. As of right now, that's all we spent. And that brings us to $51,800. We're in a fantastic place on this. I do think that we're probably going to end up somewhere between 55 and 58, depending on what else we need to order.
I'm gonna lie, I'm kind of excited to see how this car is gonna drive. Your car, and actually at the same time, an LS Swap 997.
Yes.
3 different cars.
Very true. You know. Anyway, guys, we do have a lot more to figure out on this thing. We still need to figure out the fuel stuff. There's a lot more parts we have to order. I don't think any of them are going to be too bad. Hope you guys have enjoyed this. Stick around for the project. I'll see you guys back here very soon.
Adios.
So ridiculously beautiful, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks for supporting so we can come out here, buy cool cars, and have awesome experiences like this. Why are you not fucking focused? Oh, you It's an $8,000 Zona Rona. Well, the outtakes are going to be fucking good on this one. Now, I actually have used an RPS. Which one's not out? Ho ho ho! Ho ho! Yeah.
Progress in the RX-7? Yeah!
Progress on the FD, baby.
Woo!
What a piece of junk.
Oh, that was close. This is how $100,000 looks like.
Trash box right there. Calling it.
3, 2, 1.
I build cars. I don't play basketball. Leave me alone. The filter housing itself is actually in. Those of you guys who don't know, E85, extremely corrosive. You definitely don't want it sitting in your tank, your line, your injectors, anything.